Finance Committee meeting, March 4th, 2019. Called to order. Stand for the pledge. I
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I should have did this last week, and, shame on me for not. But we do have a new recording secretary. I'm not sure if everybody knows Pat Tarantino, but I guess so we can put names to faces, if you can just go around. Start with you, Mike.
Aaron Smith.
Amy Sawyer.
Peter Kerrigan.
Paul Helmreich.
Tom DeLuca.
Steve Evans.
Bill Rotundi.
And Rick Dooney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do not see Mr. Gavea. So, take it away, Mike.
So the first thing in your packet, and I actually signed this on February 28th, that in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 31D, I hereby authorize expenditures in excess of available FY19 appropriations for snow and ice removal. So we're probably a little bit more over that after today. And first tonight is the highway budget, and I know Keith is here and he'd like to talk on this. Come on up, Keith. One of the main increases in Keith's request is 2 positions in the cemetery department.
Is everybody done?
How you doing?
Very good. Let me see. So I guess we'll start with the salaries. Right now, I'm looking for 2 new employees in the salary. Basically, the highway department, we have this, I don't know if you ever heard of the stormwater protection on all these laws they got, and we've been working on this for 2, 3, 5 years, and it's becoming a full-time job for 2 guys. You gotta go out there every year, you gotta go out twice a year, look at catch basins, check them, clean them. I have one guy that just cleans them, but we have to maintain, physically look at them, write down what condition they're in. We gotta go to every outfall twice a year, dry and wet. We have to go to every detention pond, clean it, look at it, write everything down, and it's a full-time job. And this is one of the reasons why it'd be nice to have a couple more employees. We have the cemeteries and parks. It's getting overwhelmed with. We have like 1 guy in a cemetery department, and he does parks, and he has to take 3 to 4 guys, our highway department, so they can't do highway work. We're out doing lawns and burials, and we got that new cemetery, and it's just we need more people in the cemetery department. That's why I'm asking for this. I give you a breakdown of what everybody does, but I mean, like in the springtime, after these storms, we'll be out for like probably a month or more just cleaning up the sides of the streets, looming, seeding. I mean, it's just a mess when it's the sand and salt. So basically, I got it here. It's going to be, but the new employees will be like 83,200. The stipends and longevity is $1,600 more, and then the step raises. That's for all the guys from the union contracts, would be $42,269, and the total increase would be $127,069. I did increase the seasonal help. I have 4 seasonal help, and it went up to $3,400 because we used to have 2. But for a couple more dollars, you get 2 more seasonal help guys, college people, and it really helps in the summertime. trying to get the lawns all done. It's just hard to keep up with. Basically, it's, the increases on my budget, on the salary.
Keith, a lot of the employees you have, they're cross-trained in different departments?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Everybody does, I can put anybody anywhere I want, yeah.
Well, it's helpful.
Oh, yeah.
And
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to follow up. Go ahead, make,
One other thing about the highway department, we got some older people there now, and they're looking at retirement in a couple of years. So, that's one other factor to put in, and a lot of my guys, a lot of these seniors here, they have 5 to 6 weeks vacation, and I don't really like seeing them take vacation in the winter because of what happened yesterday. And, in the summertime comes, they're going camping, going here, and, I'm sitting there getting the phone calls because things ain't getting done. So, it's just something to think about.
and just to follow up, can you elaborate a little bit about the new cemetery as far as, scope of work, activity?
The new cemetery, well, we are using it now. I have probably a half an acre still I'm working on, bringing it up to where it should be, the grade, and looming it and seeding it. And then on the Newcomb side, and Newland side, we have a strip of woods there. We cleaned it all out. We thinned the whole thing right out, so, we put wood chips in there. It looks really nice. And I might put a couple benches in there, whatever, but it's nice, but it's a huge cemetery. I mean, it'll be nice when it's, it's functioning now, but I still got to do the roadway a little bit. The roadways, we put some coal planes in there. That's got to come up the grade still, but I got to put granite posts. If you see in the front of the new cemetery is granite posts, I'm going to go all the way down Newcomb Street with it. So it'll look really nice when they have that, another gate down the other end so we can leave it closed unless someone, we have to use it, but I think it's going to look really nice when it's done.
When did that open, or when did it start? When was it being utilized?
When did we open that up? We had it open up, a young kid died, passed, and we opened it up to the family.
Okay.
And then after that, people have been asking, I said, open it. I mean, the rules and regs, the new rules and regs, they're in place, but they're still getting fine-tuned, so,
And maybe this is a question for Mike. Mike, what's the anticipated revenue for that total cemetery?
All depends how many people die, and
I know that, come on.
it's, there's I don't know, how many spaces are in there, Keith, approximately?
We have, one section, I think we have 3,500?
Wow.
Is that,
That's one section,
is that full spaces or
single grave lots.
cremation spaces?
No,
which I
that's a full grave. We want to make a cremation somewhere in there, just for cremations.
Yep.
But it's a lot of money, because they're beautiful, but they're a lot of money.
Bob?
The Cemetery Commission has been working on new regs and guidelines for the property. We just increased the fees, almost doubled them in most cases, so the fees have all come up. Selectmen recently did that, so we'll be generating more fees. But for the first time in many years, people can actually buy lots, which they couldn't do before. It was pretty much as needed. So now you can actually come in, you can buy the lots. We've modified the plans where there 3 urns can go in one lot. So they're allowing cremation to be allowed up to 3
Yep.
in each lot. We are working on maybe trying to come up with an area that will be just for cremations only. They don't take as much room, obviously, so you can do something with that. But the new rules and regulations are pretty much almost done. I'm on the Cemetery Commission too, so we're almost done with it now. And as soon as we get done with it, we'll open it up for everybody. At that point, anybody can buy them. But the lot prices have gone up quite a bit. And the consultant that we hired said, based on today's population, today's trend, the cemetery will last for 142 years. So I think we got it covered. So I don't think we have to worry about that. So But I think it's important to stress that there is a new rate program, just came out, just been put in place, and it should start generating some money, to get some money back from the, we bought that land, so we have to pay for it. And we took that, we kept that in mind. The rates for burial and all that have all gone up, everything's gone up. So hopefully it'll be more than enough to cover the expenses of it.
Thank you, Bob. Is the overtime seasonal, more so winter, summer?
On the seasonal,
Well, in your budget?
right now I have 10,000 for overtime.
Right.
And basically, right now, if you've seen the weather pattern with this, with the winds, that's just getting eaten up, just, trees coming down. And this has been crazy weather with the rain and the flooding and,
Yep.
plus we have recycling every other week down there, so it's, that's 4 hours every other week for, just at the highway department, people bring recycling in, so. But, and we use, for burials, we use the 4 hours for burials out of the highway department budget.
When someone's out in the summer, you mentioned a lot of people take their vacation then because it's preferable. When someone's out in the summer, you don't have someone else come in to cover for them, you just work with one person down?
Yeah, that's what we do, yeah. Do you want to go on with the operating budget?
Yep.
Okay. All right. The operating budget is basically the same. On the purchase and services, I took 4,000 from purchase and services and I brought it over to, where am I? Other supplies, because the purchase and services, years ago, we used to be able to purchase gloves and stuff like that with it, and for some reason, the accountant doesn't want us to use that for that particular item when you purchase stuff, so I moved 4,000 over to other materials. Electricity is up $500. Telephone, I put up, it's $1,500 more this year because I'm trying to get the guys into iPhones instead of flip phones because it's so much harder to communicate with people, and just the technology of taking pictures, looking things up, like when you want to try to find a part in a car or even directions. These flip phones, it's crazy. So for the $1,500, I think it's worth it. And then that's about it on this.
Yeah. Works. It works.
So that's about what yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Keith.
Now I go to bed.
Next is inspections. Chris Carmichael, the building commissioner, is here tonight. And as he's walking up, there's two main areas where Chris is looking for increases in his budget. And one is salaries and wages for hours for a part-time building inspector. And then other supplies are up 8,000.
Good evening. So as the town manager mentioned, I'm looking for an increase to add a local inspector, code enforcement officer, be a part-time position, 19 hours per week. That is basically the main number in that. As we're going through a slight building boom here in town, that'll allow me to do the commercial and allow this gentleman to do the residential. I'm currently working 50, 60 hours a week just to keep up, and this will allow me to work within the salary that I'm being paid. It'll also allow me to deal with the administrative duties and deal with the constant fires that seem to pop up every once in a while that I have to run around and put out. So this will allow me to spend more time doing that. We raising our fees, and we have raised our fees this year to address the online permitting. These fees more than compensate for what we bring in to address this position. Also asking for an increase in for our board-up fees. That's under other supplies. There's numerous buildings that are unsafe and hazardous. It's a liability for the town to let these buildings sit open. I've boarded up over a dozen within the last year. I've been working with the Treasurer's Department to put liens on it. This is a rotating fund. I will not be spending the money, so once the money is spent out to the board-up company to make it safe, a lien is put on the property, and then we will retake the money back when the property is sold. So this is just a fee that needs to be addressed, a fund that needs to be established is what I'm asking. There's also, I'm asking for an increase for the MEP inspections. They're some of the lowest paid in the state. I'm asking them to go for a per diem. It's a couple $1,000s for each. And that's basically the increase in my budget from last year.
Couple of questions. One
Yes,
is
sir.
on the mileage. Is there a reason why the mileage was stricken out for this budget? They're using those
I'm not, yeah, we're using the cars out here, and then our mechanical guys are using their own vehicles, and they're not charging for mileage. So again, that's part of the increase that I'm asking for, so.
So that would go into another line item, not,
Again, we're not really, not billing for mileage, so that's why I just took it out.
okay. All right, the other thing, the boarding, so last week we got, I think we funded the Board of Health was for boarding up houses as well. Now,
He
what's
boarded
the
up
difference?
one, yes. He has it within his Mass General Law to board up on safe conditions, and I've actually boarded up a couple buildings this year for him. I don't want to say it on camera. I don't want to embarrass anybody what those addresses are, but if he deems them to be a biohazard due to a hoarding situation, I've gone out and worked with him and boarded those buildings up as well, but he has it within his rights and his laws to board those up without mine. So yes, he's asked for an increase as well. But I have worked with him in the past and will continue to work with him in the future to get these projects, to make these buildings safe.
Okay, and just my last question, on the new hire, right now, you're doing all of that, so if you
Yes, sir.
work 100 hours a week.
We had numbers in it in the past, and those numbers were taken out prior to my arrival, so I'm asking for it to be reinstated.
All right, and if you're not available, this person would fill in and.
Yes, sir.
There's no.
Yeah. Right now, I don't have anybody to cover for me.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Since the other supplies, if that's going to be a revolving fund, why do we not set up a revolving fund? So we're not funding it out of the budget, and it's there, and money goes into it, just like the other revolving funds we have. Would this be a natural for that?
I'll talk to accounting about that, set it up
Yeah.
for both departments.
Yeah, because that would make more sense than keeping it as part of your budget, since you're going to get the money back when you do it anyway. Really, you don't have to handle the money then.
However, the board seems it necessary, I'm just taking last year's budget and putting the numbers
Understand what you're doing.
together.
I'm just saying. with
I agree with you,
revolving fund,
sir.
That's the way.
However it works,
Handle it.
but we would like a fund set up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The building inspector, 19 hours, and is a job description already written?
We have a job description, and I also have done comps. A couple months ago, I went through Mass Mutual and then took numbers. Basically, they range from anywhere from 28 to 32 to going up to $44 per hour. I'm asking for a $30 starting rate. I think that's reasonable. I don't think I'm going to get anybody for less than that in this day and age, to be honest with you.
And this is to take the residential side of it away from...
Yeah, I'm going to look for somebody that's qualified that will be able to do both, but, I'd rather assign him one task and let him stay and run that, and let him do his own thing, well, within the rules of the department and Mass General laws as well, so.
Okay.
Mike, is that 19 below benefits?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Any
I
other
was just
questions?
going to ask one last question.
Yes, sir.
John, I think it's maybe building permits and so forth now online?
Yes, sir, we're all online now, thanks to your approvals last year of our budgeting for hardware and software. We can now go online. I gave a brief update at the Selectmen's meeting last week, and more than happy to come and do a demonstration for you folks as well, if you'd like. But you can go onto the town's website, you can apply online, you can apply on a tablet, on a desktop, a computer, on your phone. You can apply for a permit online now. You can request inspections online. We're in the 21st century, and we've gone paperless, so it's increased productivity immensely. And then to be able to work with the other departments, concurrent review, and then with the assessors and the tax collector's office, and to see that everybody's current. I think you should ask them when they come up here how good it is. It's increased our productivity exponentially. So,
Good.
thank you for your support in that as well.
I can say I used the online permitting already for something. It was very, it's awesome. Worked great.
You didn't want to come in and walk it down the hallway?
No, it was,
No?
I would only suggest if there's, for the average person, which I am, is some examples on the website of different projects and how to fill out a form.
Okay.
For my particular case, it was, I called and got someone to help me right away. It wasn't
We do
like
have
no
the
one helped
kiosk.
me, but it was, would be nice if, an example of, I was replacing garage doors. There was, I didn't know what to pick for which form to start with. So maybe if something was a help page that said, hey, if you're doing this, putting in a pool, here's an example of what someone filled out. I think that would be a,
I'll look to increase the amount of FAQs on the website so that I can help
that would be
people
great,
out at
be
home.
awesome.
I'll take your advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Next budget I'd like to present is the Council on Aging budget. And the Director, Beth Rossi, is here tonight. And as Beth comes up, one of the main increases that Beth is looking at in this budget is under part-time wages. Right now, we don't have any clerical support at the Council on Aging. And Beth is dealing a lot now with Human Services, and she can talk to you more about that. And it would be beneficial to have someone in the office that could work with her on a confidential basis in that area.
Hi.
Hi.
So I think we're called the Council on Aging, but I'm the Director of Human Service and the Council on Aging. So I think it's important to get that message out to people that the work that is done outside of that building on the other side of town is for all people. And I gave you a copy of our new brochure that sort of lists on the inside all the things that we do. And it's everything from helping families with food stamp applications, fuel assistance, rental assistance, emergency food. We field questions from, children of adult parents who need help and support. So we've really grown in the last 5 years that I've been there from a small senior center to a very, very active, multi-purpose human service department. We have myself full-time. The town pays 10 hours a week for a part-time outreach worker. And what an outreach worker does is they go out into the community and they take care of the folks who can't come through the door. So one of my requests is to increase my outreach workers' hours from $19.32 an hour to $21 an hour. Kathy Varnum is excellent. She comes to us, and this would be a performance-based increase. She's not in any of the unions, and she is phenomenal. She came to us with a higher degree. She was the outreach worker in Foxborough. She worked for HESCO Elder Services. She knows her stuff, and I did some comps, and You know, I've seen outreach workers range from 22 to over 30 an hour. And again, I hired her at 18, so I think we want to keep her in town. She is an asset. So that's Kathy. As Mike mentioned, we really need some admin support. I'm the only department head that doesn't have any admin support, and the program has grown. As I said before, and when I first started here, we had 3,600 seniors in town. We now have well over 4,000. Those numbers are projected to increase. As I mentioned, with the human service work that we do, that has grown exponentially. So we started out just doing fuel assistance, but then when you do an intake with somebody who needs help with fuel, you also see they need help with other things. And we have been an amazing resource to connect people to the resources they have. When you do an intake appointment with somebody, it usually lasts over an hour. You gotta look at all the aspects in their lives and try to come up with a plan that's gonna give them a hand up and help them move forward to be productive, independent members of our community. And, you know, as we've seen the increase of human service needs for both seniors and under seniors, I'm in the office more. I depend 100% on volunteers to answer the phones and to field some of the questions that come in. My volunteers are awesome. I've got the best volunteers ever, but there's a lot of things that they're not qualified or trained to handle. I have 10 different volunteers that come in, 2 a day. There's no consistency, and we really struggle with that. Some of them are awesome, and some, you know, like we have some issues with. So we need somebody who is consistent. We need somebody who can help out. I gave you a copy of my request. You know, somebody who can help out a little bit more with the computer. So not only am I doing, you know, the meetings in the office, but I put together a phenomenal newsletter that's usually 16 to 18 pages long, and I really attributed the newsletter to the increase in our programs. It would be great to have somebody who could help with that, who could answer some of the more basic questions that come in, and just so we have that consistency. There's a lot of times I'm in my office, I always leave the door open, and I hear somebody answer the phone, and they may say, you know, fuel assistance, we don't do that. I'm like, wait, we do that and more. And you know, no matter how many times we have volunteer training, they're volunteers. And one of the things that I struggle with, and somebody else mentioned, Keith mentioned, is sort of people taking time off. If I am to take time off, we're leaving the building and the people in the hands of volunteers. And I know that makes me anxious. You know, would they know what to do in a crisis situation? I don't know. So it's important. And I'm getting tired. I mean, I'm doing so many different things. So that's the request for the administrative assistant. Any questions?
You said the outreach worker isn't in a union?
She's not in a union, no. She's 10 hours paid from the town and 8 hours paid for a grant.
Because she has partially funded for a grant, she's not in a union?
No, she's not considered permanent, part-time, more than, she's just temporary, part-time. She doesn't work enough hours, so.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Is there statistics that go around with the utilization of the services, how many people use?
Yes.
Is that
Yep.
something maybe we can get at a future meeting?
Absolutely.
And then-
Absolutely, that's something I keep track of for the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. I mean, we have on average between 50 and 60 people walking through the door on a daily basis.
So how do we get out or educate our seniors that the services are here? How do we push that out so that people know?
I write a newsletter that comes out every other month. The newsletter is mailed to every single home with a resident who's 60 and older. And if somebody who's watching this, if you're not getting it, call me and we'll put you on the mailing list. The newsletter not only talks about some of the activities that we have going on at the center, but the newsletter also lists all the services we offer. I mean, currently, right now, we're in the process of tax time, and we offer AARP tax assistance for seniors and low-income residents. In the fall, we were busy doing Medicare counseling.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that posted like anywhere else, like the library, here in the town hall, anything like
What is that, the?
the newsletter?
Oh, I leave copies here in the town hall, yes. And we try to post things on that new,
The board?
the board outside. I know they're advertising fuel assistance and our tax prep.
Is there an electronic copy available, like, through the town website, too?
If I had an administrative assistant, there would be, but right now, there's not. I do try to post a lot of, it's easier for me with Facebook because it's quicker. I do post the monthly calendar, if I remember, on there, as well as some of the activities that are coming and going, but I have not up. I used to, and then I got a call saying, you're 2 months behind on the newsletter on the website, so I stopped. But that's why we need some admin support.
Yep. Support you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, any other questions about sort of what we do and the miracles that we're doing there on such a small budget? You know, right now we're spending, if you even just look at the amount of money we have in our budget and you divide it by the number of seniors, it's like $17 a senior. I'm asking to increase that up to 25. The other things were just increases in electricity and gas, and that's that.
Thank you.
All set? Thank you.
Matt?
Next budget is assessors, and Denise Ellis, the assessor, is here tonight. In Denise's budget, she has a slight decrease in her expenses and a $9,000 increase in personnel services. And the main reason for that, Denise is looking to increase the hours of her part-time staff person. Right now, in the office, we have Denise and another full-time worker with Denise and a part-time position that we're currently trying to fill. But Denise is looking to increase the hours, and Denise will tell you the main reason for that. And I'm sure one of them is so that Denise can be out working to inspect properties. And since Denise has come here, we've increased our new growth from $200,000 a year to over $600,000 almost every year. And that's to the efforts of Denise going out and following up on building permits and getting that new growth onto our assessments, which is something we desperately need every year.
Evening. So like Mike said, I'm looking to increase the hours. So, you know, I'm out on the field. So, backtrack. So from next March through usually September, October, I'm out in the field pretty much every single day. I'm doing all the building permits. Anybody who purchases a new home, I'm looking at all the new homes to make sure we have the right information. So being out there a good part of the day, every day, I don't have a chance to do the administrative work. And I probably do 500-600 permits within that time, along with all the sales that have been well over 100 every year. So I'm looking to increase the part-time person so that the assistant can come out and help me do the permits. We also have an issue with a lot of the condo complexes in town. They're incorrect. So I've been slowly, as I've started, fixing all of those. Some are over-assessed, some are under-assessed, where I'm just trying to get them right so that they're fair. And I did do 2 complexes. I did one in the fall, and I'm in the process of doing one now. That's a big one. So, but what happens, if I'm out on the road, there's nobody in the office answering the phone. And in our office, pretty much everything comes through our office, between motor vehicle excise, we do all the senior exemptions, the work-off programs, all the chapter land, the charitable, you name it, it comes through our office. So we need people in there at all time. If they're down at the tax collector's office, they need to come up, somebody has to be there. So I'm just asking for an increase just to cover the Monday through Thursday while we're out in the field, just so we can get things done and keep bringing in that new growth, because that's the most important thing to do. You know, those permits are important to get done. So, and again, if we're not in the office, we're not there to help everybody else out. So that's the main reason for the increase.
Does this, would this make the person eligible for benefits at this point?
It would.
And the problem that I have too, it's only 18 hours, and trying to find somebody for 18 hours a week, because there's a lot of education in my office. There's so much that we have to do. By the time we train them on one thing, there's just not enough time in the day because we have so much going on. So, and trying to get somebody for that many hours just doesn't work. I mean, I hire somebody and they don't last that long because they're just overwhelmed because they're trying to learn it all in a 3-hour day. So, and then that happens, and then they're getting the wrong information if I'm not in the office or if the other girl isn't in the office, the other woman. So it is increasing the hours. It will make it with the benefits, but hopefully I'll hire somebody that doesn't need the benefits, so we'll be all set.
Can you tell me, in process, how do we confirm that there's an assessment for every home in the town, or an excise tax generated for every vehicle or equipment in the town? How does that?
So the excise bills, those actually come through from the registry of motor vehicles. They send us the file, and we just upload it and send it off to the tax collector. And she actually prints the bills. So those records are coming from the registry. And assessments, basically being out in the field and making sure we have everything. We have, right now, we're in the process of, that we're doing the cyclical program that the state requires us to do. We have found many businesses and many homes that were not on the books. A lot of businesses, actually. A couple of homes here or there, and maybe some garages and additions, things like that. And that's mainly because the prior assessor was more of a desktop assessor, I guess, who really didn't go out on the road and wasn't picking up all this information. So there's a lot of issues out there that I'm fixing and trying to get straightened out. But we have to be out on the road to find all these problems.
And of those issues, what percent do you think you have corrected?
Minimal. It's not much. Right now, we're working on the commercial. So she's been getting a lot of that done the last couple of weeks because we're doing the personal property. And she's found quite a few of those businesses. Because we haven't done it in like 5 years. So now we're doing it again. With the residential, like I said, I'm finding all the condos. I've probably got just a quarter of those done. And then the residential is hard. You have to be out there all the time. It's just a constant inspections. And usually it's through the sales, anybody that's purchasing the home, or building permits. That's usually the only time you find it, or if I'm out on the road and I kind of notice something weird. But
Okay, so it sounds like maybe we're not getting the maximum tax dollars that we should as of now.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I do. If the part-time position is increased, it goes to 28 hours, and that qualifies them for benefits anyway. Is that enough time? Because we're hearing about the leakage of tax, revenue that we have. I mean, I know you'd want more, but is this enough?
Well, I'm hoping it's enough. I mean, obviously, the ideal thing would be to have 2 full-time people in my office, because that would be like a full-time clerk. That would be great. But I'm hoping if we get the 28 hours, that'll be Monday through Thursday, maybe 9:30 to 3:30. That will cover the time that I'm on the road. And that I can come back and actually do some administrative work and get everything done. Because not only am I out on the road, but then I have to work with the TIFs, the pilots, and everything else that's going on in town. So it's trying to balance it all. It's pretty difficult.
I mean, this position more than most would seem to pay for itself more.
Absolutely.
Many times over, so.
I think so. It's an important, and being in other towns, and I know how their staffing is, we're well understaffed in my office compared to other towns. And obviously underpaid, but that's another issue. So. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next several areas to address are the treasurer-collector. Kathy Van Dyne, the treasurer-collector, is here tonight.
Good evening. So just looking at my general budget, there really aren't many increases except for salaries, of course, which is contractual on that. And then the only other big increase is on the purchases of services. I've had to increase that a bit because we're looking to get the payroll records just online, so we won't be actually printing checks anymore, which will save us a lot of time in the office. And also with the Affordable Care Act filing requirements, it costs a lot more every year to keep up with getting all those forms done. We use Harper's Payroll right now, and they're actually the best in the industry for municipalities. They understand our uniqueness with our pensionable and non-pensionable items. And the police department's using some extra, what do they call it? Like the time sheets right now, and it's working, and we're actually starting to pull in the time from the police department into the payroll section, so that's gonna free up some time and help a lot.
And just to talk on that a little bit more, what we're looking to do is, right now, our timesheets are still all by hand, and we're looking to automate our time system, and we started with the police because they're the most complicated, and with details and different rates, and so now an example is with the details. Before, they'd have to fill out a little slip and turn it in when they did a detail, where they were, who they worked for, and then do a detail the next day, fill out another little slip and turn it in. Well, now they can just from their phones, they can put it in. And if a company calls up and says, I shouldn't have a bill that big, I didn't have that many details, they can just go from any time period, put that company's name in, pick the time period, and print out a list to show them. And another example with them is, they work 4 on, 2 off. So someone may not be working on a Monday, the timesheets have to be turned in, but they forgot on Saturday, their last day of work, to turn in their timesheets. They got to come back in on Monday. Well, now they can just do it right from home. And so it would be the same. Harper's have been great working with them. We had 5 companies we looked at, and they were the only one that would adjust to what we were looking for. And so they were great working with the police department. We got that ironed out. And I know recently they did a trial where they actually sent their timesheets over to you. Have you done that?
We did our first detail last
Yeah.
week, and it was like, woohoo, it matched.
Yeah.
It was
So-
great. Because detail is very complicated with all the different rates, and it's easy to make a mistake. So if you can get rid of the key punch part of it and just pull the file in, that's success.
I know one of the worst things you can do, and it happened in a town I was at before. I wasn't town administrator, I was on the school committee then, but the town switched to a new software program that nobody could figure out. They wasted like $60,000 on this program and then just ditched it. So that's why we figured we'd start with the police department, get everything ironed out, and then move on to the other departments. So it'll be great. Most places, I know my wife was doing this at her company decades, it seems ago. So no more paper stubs. If people want to see, they can just go online and call it up and find it. And it'll keep track of your vacation time, any days you use, sick time, whatever, so you can just check, and we don't have to have someone in the town accountant's office keeping a running tally from the timesheets of everybody's sick time and personal time. It will automatically be generated.
Right. And eventually, too, on the detail side, it's supposed to be able to print the invoices. We're not there yet. Courtney does a wonderful job taking all the police payroll and then turning it into invoicing and then matching that up every month or every week. So, so that's my main budget. And I did want to just elaborate on what Chris Carmichael said earlier. That new permitting system is phenomenal for me as the tax collector because it's a got-you when I see a name pop up and they owe taxes. And I just halt. They don't get their permit until they come down and pay off. So within the last couple weeks, I owe Chris a couple cups of coffee. He's doing my job, at least that's what he tells me. So, does anyone have any questions on my main budget?
Just a quick one. I noticed
Yep.
longevity is going up.
Yes,
I know it's not a lot, but is that,
that's me. I've been here 5 years now, so
that's the crossover?
I get longevity now.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So what do you have next? Debt? Is that your next page?
Tax title.
Oh, tax title, I'm sorry, at the very bottom. Yeah, I've been holding that consistent. I'm trying to get a list together to do another auction this year. We were short-staffed for 3 months in my office. It was my payroll girl was out, and it's very hard to fill in the gaps when you're down a whole person. So I just, the one thing that falls to the wayside, unfortunately, is the tax title, because that's not pressing, it's not paying somebody. So I'm hoping to get going on that. Bob Kimball's offered to come in and be my assistant, so we'll see how that goes.
How big is that list at the moment, tax title?
I don't really have a really good answer for that because it's changing constantly, but that's for the foreclosed properties. Bob and I have been going through it. Some of the properties on the list are actually conservation properties now that were given to the conservation at a town meeting. So what Bob and I have been trying to do is go through that list and figure out what is really a piece of property that I can auction off. Because there's a couple I'd like to auction off, and I found out, oh, they're conservation. So it's taking time to go through that list. And Bob knows the town. So he's like, oh, I know where that piece of land is, and he knows where that piece of land is. So it's just finding the time to work on that. But once I have a good list that I know is correct, then I will share that. And then we actually push it out to all the department heads have to take a look and make sure, again, that it's not a conservation property or a piece of land that we can't sell.
And
So.
when's the last time we had an auction?
It was a couple of years ago. We did quite well, and that's why I'd like to do it again. But also, it costs a lot of money to do the auction, so I want to make sure that if I'm spending 10 to 15 to 20,000, I think last time it was like 15,000. If I'm going to spend that kind of money, I want to make sure that I'm going to bring in enough revenue to compensate for that.
Right.
And we did last time, I think it was about almost 400,000, so it was worth it. So I won't, that's a high number, and I want the next one to be just as high, if not higher. I'll be very disappointed if it's not.
And that last one was catching up for how many years? Because I seem to remember that hadn't been done in a long time, and that
Right.
400,000 year was a catch-up on everything.
Yes, it was, and we had one big property that went for a lot of money, so that was helpful. That was for,
Okay, and that was basically how many years ago did we go with the 400? Was it last year?
it was 2 years ago that auction, and it had been at least 5 years prior to that, was the one before that. I think it was in '07 or '08, something like that.
Thank you.
Okay. But I do have to say, too, the collections we've increased our collections. When I just had an advertisement in the newspaper last year, at this time, there were 65 properties advertised. This year, I only advertised 44. So my staff is working very hard to try to find people. And now with this new permitting system, I think we'll find even more. I'm very excited about it. Okay. So then debt. Everyone likes to talk about debt. So we're going to be final borrowing some money probably in October, and we're not sure exactly how much that's going to be. So I have increased my long-term interest as best I can, because there will be a payment due for the interest in April of 2020. So that's just my rough estimate until and the rates are going up. So I believe we base that on an interest rate of 5% with the new money that we would borrow. But again, we're not sure what that interest rate will come in. I just did a short-term borrowing, and those rates came in at, I think it was 2.5%. So the rates are starting to creep up. I think last year, the year before, it was only 1.5%, so.
Mike, what's our bond rating?
Double A
Double A,
plus? No, double A.
double A, I believe.
I think it's just double A. We should be having a new bond rating this year.
It all depends how much we put in OPEB.
Yeah. OPEB does have a big
Whoa.
part on that.
Could you say that again? Because he doesn't listen to me.
He's using his flip phone.
Yeah. We all hate that word OPEB, but it has, the bond rating, and they look at that. If you're looking towards your future, you know, it's kind of like if you don't have a good capital plan, you know, they kind of look at it the same way. And I know it's kind of hard to look at the years, what is it, 2050 or something? I don't know.
You can go on to, the town accountant's site on the town
Yep.
website, and the OPEB audit is up there, the new audit, so you can check and see.
See what that number is.
So is there some number that if we had better OPEB would have a better?
Yeah, 100% funded.
Well, I know that. So, but if it wasn't 100%,
I
can
don't,
we help our rating by adding more? That's the question.
you can, I don't know what the dollar amount would be to shift it.
That's what we'd have to know, I think.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Right.
I mean, if you don't know that answer, then
To move the needle is probably not worth it.
that's my point.
Yeah.
So,
But to do nothing
Right,
will move the needle
right.
negative.
And increasing the amount we put in every year is good, because they want to see that you're at least increasing the amount, even if it's by, what is it, 5,000 a year?
all I was gonna say, all our help?
Did we practice this before this meeting?
No, we did not. I've never met you before, actually.
See?
The listing that's here in our packet, this is all the borrowings we have right now that we're obligated to.
Correct. There's only two numbers on there that are just estimates on that sheet that you have. Let me pull mine out. Thank you. I think I bolded it.
Yeah, the new borrowing and
Yeah, the one that says new borrowing, that's the potential, that is the school window project, and I forgot what the other things were.
Water main?
Yeah, Title
But the water mains are down the bottom, I moved them. The water mains are underwater, so yeah, the water mains are underwater.
Title V.
Yep, 2.7 million is down underwater, that's the potential borrowing coming up. And that interest rate is based on 5% on there. And then there was the HVAC system at the library. The watershed? The watershed, I'm trying to remember all the short-term bans I've been doing over the last 2 years.
Clean, pond clean up, the watershed plan.
Yep,
thank you.
you're welcome.
So, I don't know if I'm going to phrase this properly. What percentage are we in our borrowing capacity?
We're not even close.
We're not, yeah.
I can let you know that, but we're not even close.
Thank you.
You'd think we were by the amount, but we're not. Those are big numbers. All right, so then, all set on debt? So then the employee benefits. The first line item, of course, is the amount for the Bristol County retirement. That is a number we are given. We actually pay that early every year, so we do get a discount. I don't remember what the discount is, but So that's budgeted for with the discount. The insurance for the active plans is only going up 2% this year, which is, yoo-hoo, that's wonderful. We don't know what the retiree rates will be, but, so that's what's reflected in there. And then I always try to do an estimate of how many people will come onto the plan, because even as people retire, they just move to the retiree side, but they stay on the active plans if they're not 65, and then we rehire people, so then we add more people, you know. And then the school there's usually at least 15, 20 new people added to the health insurance at the school almost every year, too, so that kind of like, so I have to keep that, I take that into consideration when I try to come up with a potential budget for the next fiscal year. Medicare, I just increased that by 4%. That seemed to be the right number from last year, so I just stayed constant with that. And the Medicare is the portion that the town pays for active employees.
On the opt-out, there's a $10,000 increase. Are you just expecting more to opt out of coverage for the town?
If we're going to do the PEC again, right, Mike? Yeah, we're looking that if we get people to opt out, then we're saving the money from the town on the health insurance.
Okay. And PEC is what?
Public Employee Committee.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what it was.
And then the other thing and I forget, and I apologize, but, so there was a contract about this copay reimbursement, right? Was it a percentage of contract? And I know we budgeted
The HRA, yes. Yes, that money is still in the bank.
We're only expending about $21,000 a year,
Yeah,
and then
Yeah.
in 20 it goes away. We don't have to offer it anymore.
right,
That all depends on the negotiations with the
unions.
PEC.
Thanks.
And the opt-out at 30,000, that would cover how many people?
I think right now we have 9 people.
9 at the 20?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I didn't bring those numbers with me, sorry. So we would anticipate if we offered it again, more people would go onto their spouse's plan or whatever to get that check. Okay. So is that it? Am I done? I don't do unemployment. You do unemployment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Oh, Paul's here. Why don't we have the fire chief come up, and then we'll go back to the unemployment insurance.
Okay.
So before I get into my spiel, I will tell you that I got a phone call this morning for the first power outage in Norton at 5:53. Right, Mr. Wiggins? Call me personally, let me know. So anyways, we did have a total of 3,521 people without power in Norton today at some point in time, but we're really the only town that was hit hard, and it was wacky stuff, transformers and things like that there. They did come right out and fix it very quick, so at least it wasn't dragging on and on. We had to worry about shelters or anything, so. So again, thank you and good evening, and allowing me to be here for a few minutes, Mike. So in the past, I've always read my complete narrative into the record, just so the people at home hear it. I'm going to do a little bit of ad-libbing on that. I'm not sure if you all had a chance to look at it prior to the meeting or not, but I think it's important that I do mention that the budget itself is based on a level service with the inclusion of a 2% salary increase for the year. And I've also included any contractual increases as well as the steps per the various CBAs. The budget also contains an increase of 1 firefighter paramedic hired in anticipation of my upcoming retirement. It is my hope that you will allow this position to remain funded after my retirement to help out with the increasing workload that's taken place, partly because of the fact that on February 1st, the fire department became a OSHA-regulated entity, which we've never been in Massachusetts. So there's a whole lot of politics that went behind that, and they've asked us as fire chiefs not to fight it, but to try to work with DLS, which is the Massachusetts equivalent to that, to try to work with it. But you know that as of February 1st, if somebody, God forbid, get really badly hurt or killed, we'd have to meet all their regulations, even though they try to tell me that they're trying to ease us into it. They're going to come back at you hard if there's a problem. So again, and OSHA's all about documentation. That's a good part of what they're all about. So I'm hoping that you'll consider keeping that staff position in place even after I retire. It'll help the new chief and deputy greatly. I had actually done a response to a union grievance back in 2012, and one of my comments was to try to grow the department over the next 5 years to 9 per shift, and also that staff position. So even back then, I was thinking about it because of the workload. So again, that could be funded all or in part from the ambulance stabilization account. So also included is the 5-year capital improvement budget. I don't know if you want me to enumerate that or what your thoughts are, Mr. Chairman, but okay. So there are 6 items requested this year. There are 2 that requests that would be funded 100% from the ambulance stabilization account. The first is to replace our Zodiac rescue boat. The current one has seen its share of use and has been sporadically out of service due to its age and normal wear and tear. I will tell you that we had penciled in a price going by what the county chiefs had gotten for a couple of boats they got of $45,000. I don't know if they got the new updated list, Mike, or not, but the actual cost came in at $20,000 to replace that. So a much better deal. It's very similar to what we have now, with the exception that we'll have a center console instead of having to have somebody sit in the back to steer it and stuff. So next, we have requested to replace and upgrade some of our JAWS and heavy rescue equipment. This is being driven by advances in technology, and also the new units are cordless. And they've actually had great strides with these new lithium batteries to run these and have them work, so they're much more portable. So that's $50,000. Again, that would be out of the ambulance account. The final 4 requests will be funded under the capital. The first, I'm looking to finish the turnout project. The cancer has been rampant in the fire service, and I was going to try to kick the final purchase of the rest of the gear for the guys to have their second sets to the following year. But with everything going on, I think it's best for their health that we go ahead and get them their second set right out of the gate. So as it is now, I was over at the plane crash in Mansfield and came back. I don't have a second set. I don't need a second set, but I did have to wash my set, and for a weekend I felt naked not having a set of gear in my car. So again, it is an issue that when we do go on a call, we do get contaminated, we do need to come back and properly decontaminate it. We actually got the special gear extractors that we got through a grant a couple of years ago at no cost to the town, with these 2 massive drying machines as well that safely mitigates the problems we have. So again, that's $49,500 for 18 sets.
If you have to wash the gear, how long does it take between washing it and being able to use it again?
Well, part of the problem is the machines can only do a set at a time, so I have 2 machines, so that's part of the problem. When we have a fire, fortunately, I get a lot of off-duty response as well, so all that gear has to get done, so guys leave their gears and it gets washed and stuff. So you're talking 4, 5, 6 days without your primary set of gears potentially. So if it's 1 or 2 people that got exposed to something, then that certainly is a much quicker. But again, that's why the second set's so important. And we just had our Chiefs Conference up in Worcester, and I was fortunate to have an ultrasound done of my carotids, but my thyroid. And I was really pleased about the thyroid, because that's one of the real bad exposure spots for a firefighter. And we've been trying to use the hoods now and be a little more careful. I have commercial wipes on the trucks now, so when they come out of a fire, they can wipe those areas that are sensitive down. But the amount of thyroid and testicular cancer in the fire service is astronomical, and now, believe it or not, breast cancer that they're associating as well to that. So again, with the females in the fire service. So again, I was pleased that I was good to go, but especially after 44 years. So So then, the other thing next door is a couple years ago, I worked with Mr. Units, and we did a Band-Aid approach to the apparatus from floor. All the thresholds were broken apart, and the stair was kicking up, was tripping hazards, and the Band-Aid just didn't last. It was almost like throwing money away. After 2 years, it's almost back to where it was. So it's done us well. It's 40-something years old, with having some very massive and heavy trucks backing in and out of it all the time, but the floor itself, the floor drains, and the thresholds all need to be redone, so I put a figure in there of $75,000. The floor drains themselves, we could never bring them up to code. It'd be too cost prohibitive to jackhammer up the floor to try to do that, but they do need to be updated and a little bit better maintenance done on them, so. And then finally, I'm still looking to hopefully finish the final phase of the Chartley, keeping it upgraded and the maintenance on it. We learned a hard lesson with the Winnicott Fire Station. If you turn a blind eye to it for very long, mold and mildew will take over, and it ends up getting torn down. So we don't want to do that to Chartley. I think if we get another $25,000, I can renovate the kitchen and make it livable, and the station itself will be ready to rock and roll if and when we get enough manpower. And finally, I put a note down the bottom of this. It's on the bottom of my 5-year capital list as well, but we really are in desperate need of a heated shell building somewhere to get some of our equipment out of cover. When you pull in here, you'll see equipment outside here and stuff. I would suggest that it be built somewhere in the east side of town, since that's the side of town that has really been starting to blossom, and hopefully build it with the end goal of potentially staffing it again at some point in the distant future. So. Page 3, I'm not going to read to you. That's just the ongoing priorities that remain for us, which is the simultaneous calls, response time, and increased staffing. Page 4 is the infamous spreadsheet that you need a magnifying glass to look at. I don't know if that's done by design, Mr. Units, or not, but page 5 is the overtime expense worksheet. And again, stop me if you have any specific question. Page 6, I actually have a typo that, and I tell you, I have a lot of people take a look at my stuff before I submit it, both next door, and my biggest critic is my wife at home, and we all missed it. Your sheet says fiscal year 2019 at the very top. So anyways, that is fiscal year 2020, so I don't know if you just want to pencil that in or not, but I have replacement copies if you want a clean copy. So that's kind of an important page. It does talk about the comparison between the last few years and this year's requested. So this year for fiscal year 20, it's up $201,839 more than fiscal year 19. This is due to contractual items, and again, we still need to continue to increase the staffing. But this budget does include that increase of one firefighter paramedic. And again, it's hoped that you'll continue to fund this position even after I retire. If you should decide not to fund it after my retirement date, you could adjust that figure down by $43,497.51. So that's the cost to carry it beyond my retirement. And in fiscal year 2014, again, we increased the amount transferred from the ambulance stabilization from 400 to 500, and in FY18, we increased it to 600,000, and I certainly would think, in talking to Mr. Units, that we could possibly increase that again to help supplement some of the increased manpower that has been hired. So page 7 is the overtime narrative. Again, I'm not going to read that, but I will tell you that the budget is based on being able to drop down one position. And right now, I have 9 on a shift on paper. My problem is I have 2 open positions and 2 on-the-job injuries. So I've already got that missing link. So when I increase the staffing the 1st of December for the winter to 8, I'm really hiring man for man, and it's sucking down the overtime account like there's no tomorrow. So I've got to readdress that. There was questions asked previously at what's the threshold for maybe trying to staff Chartley and giving it a try. It would be at a level of 8, but I can't guarantee that I can move forward with that for the rest of this year. So in talking to some of the senior staff, we're working on replacing the 2 open shifts, and then Hopefully, the 2 OJIs will actually get rehabbed enough to come back to work, but if not, hopefully we can replace them in a short order. And if we have that 9 on a shift, which is budgeted for, then I think that it is going to be worth trying to open with the 8, with staffing to a level of 8. So we'll see how that all pans out, but again, I live in Chartley, my mother lives in Chartley. People always say, how come you don't open Chartley? It's because right now, with the manpower we have, it really is better in the central hub, you know, and like I said, if we had a station over in Winnicott still somewhere in East Norton, then it might be better off having 2, 2, and 4 here if we're at 8 and 5 here, if there's a full shift of 9 or something, and do that even, because you get that extra coverage. Right now, if I have most of my eggs in this basket and I have a couple eggs in the Chartley basket, and we go out of this station, say to Roach Brothers for a call, and the next call is down on Lincoln Street, that is one heck of a ride from Chartley, you know, so again, there's a real negative response time to something like that. So ideally, 2 stations, one in East Norton, one by St. Mary's, say, would be the ideal, but Chartley is certainly too nice a station not to maintain and potentially staff there, but if we do that at some point, we really should be looking at doing something in East Norton as well, page 7, 8, and 9 shows the overtime details. Page 10 is the incentive spreadsheet. Page 11 is the call firefighter spreadsheet, which covers our 2 chaplains. Page 12 is the Excel spreadsheet for salary and fire expense that you're used to seeing. 13, 14, and 15 expands on those individual expense items. I'm going to touch on a couple of them. We're asked to do a level service budget this year, and I do have a couple of items that went up contractually. One of them is the 5309 uniform allowance, went up $1,600. The 5716 educational and training assistance. I have a lot of new younger firefighters. That hasn't been touched in many, many years. That's been at $8,000 since forever. I'm just trying to head off an issue where I've got more people starting to go to college. I have to fund them no matter what, so it's going to be a comeback anyway. So I think it was prudent to maybe include $2,000 there. On the good news side, on the 5315 professional services line item, that had some one-time expenses for the deputy chief and the chief's civil service testing. So that could decrease from $17,000 from last year. In a set of complete openness, that's actually a $1,000 increase from 2 years ago that I've put in there for, and that's because of the cost for the testing and stuff for the new hires and things comes out of that, and it's just getting very pricey. It doesn't go far, $4,000, so I bumped that to $5,000. So that's it on the changes in the fire side expense. Page 16 shows the ambulance expense spreadsheet. 17, 18, and 19 expands on those individual expense items. There are no increases from last year's budget, although I can tell you that many of the medical supplies and especially the prescription costs are going out of sight. But we are trying to work on bulk purchasing and chasing down the best deals, and we also try to beat up as many of the hospitals that we go to for swap outs and stuff as we can and stuff. So trying to keep that in check. I might anticipate the next chief might be looking for a bump in some of those line items, but for next year I think we can handle it. Page 20 is the spreadsheet showing simultaneous emergencies. Chief Gomes started providing that back when he took over, I think in 2004, and I've continued it. It just shows that when we're really tapped, when we've actually had at least 2 emergencies going on at the same time. This past year had a significant increase of 120 occurrences. Many of these were the results of the severe weather stretch we had last March. And I was actually looking, just because it was just this past few days, a year ago, March 2nd and 3rd of last year, I had almost $2,500 in callback alone just for the storms that we had in that couple-day period. It was such a nasty little stretch. So part of that is that. But the other part of it is the increased amount of time that we spend on an ambulance call. It used to be that you called us, we ran there, we'd pretty much take a blood pressure and make sure you were stable, throw you on a stretcher, and whisk you off to usually the nearest hospital, is how it used to be worded. Now we go in there, they actually want us to sit with you, really almost pre-treat you in the house for at least 20 minutes. So looking at a 20-minute window, and they're looking at our times on scene even to make sure that we're looking at you, getting comfortable, making sure that we know what's going on, and then you get transported to the nearest appropriate facility, which many times is either Good Sam if it's a possible cath issue, or Rhode Island Hospital for trauma and things like that. So the individual ambulance calls are actually taking a lot longer, both even the local ones, but also these specialty transports. So that's actually adding to the fact that we have the simultaneous calls, because the ambulance is tied up longer. So page 21 is the 5-year capital plan for the department that I've highlighted this next year's. And with that, the emergency management budget is absolutely identical to last year. So, Mike, I know it's going to be scary, but that actually wraps up my formal presentation. So I got in big letters down there, questions. That's a record, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
So it took me all these years to finally figure out that maybe I shouldn't be boring you to death here, I don't know, but I will tell you that I really did appreciate, I know that for years I've had Mr. Helmrich as a liaison, and I've appreciated the interaction and stuff. This year I had a new liaison, and the gentleman sitting over here, Rich, and really appreciate the time that he spent going over the budget, and he actually did a tour of the facilities. And I've always advocated that I really wish that there could be somehow a way that the committee could actually do a live tour of like the fire station here and also Chartley and Barrowsville and stuff, just to see what you actually have and whatnot. But I do appreciate that you did spend a considerable amount of time with me. So I took it out on him instead of the rest of you with my lengthiness of discussion, so.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, so, you know. You have a department second to none. You really do. It's a great group. The medics, I'd put them up against anybody at any given time in the quality of care you're going to get. And when we have that occasional fire, which we don't have often, it really surprises me just how great the guys click and do what they got to do and do it safely and do it the right way and stuff. So they really are very well trained and stuff. And again, you should be very proud of them. I know that I am. So.
With the increased time for the ambulances, does that increase the fees at all?
So the selectmen have been very good about increasing over the last few years. I think almost every year, Mike, I've come back and done something as far as the fees. But this year, it's we're at the top of the spectrum just about, because one of the things we changed last year is we went from a la carte billing. So if I went to your house and we did 10 items, we'd bill you for those 10 items. Now it's either a BLS call or an ALS call or a bad ALS call. Basically, there's really 3 tiers, and it's a good reason for it. Is whether or not I use an EKG on you, the town had to pay for that EKG. We had to get trained on it and proficient on it. So there is a reason why, and that mirrors what Medicare allows. So we're doing what Medicare says is okay. And in the past, we were one of the renegade departments that did the a la carte. So that's actually increased our fees indirectly by actually billing people for stuff they didn't really need to be billed for in the past. And again, it's like I said, there is a reason for it, but we're also a little gun shy about trying to go up any more because we are at the high end of it, and we're the only entity that gets to set our own rates across the state. The insurance commissioner goes nuts about it and really wants to do this is the rate for transport across Massachusetts. And as fire chiefs, we've been fighting tooth and nail, and every year it comes up, and every year we've been able to get enough politicians to not back that. But we're the only entity that gets to set rates per municipality for that kind of stuff. Everything else, even our permits, are all governed by a state regulation and stuff. So again, we don't want to get too comfortable and then suddenly have the rug pulled out from under us if the chiefs are unable to successfully fight it off, and then suddenly you're losing $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in revenue or something. So again, and it would be that kind of a hit. The rates that he's putting out there are crazy. We couldn't really survive with an ambulance service that way, and I don't know how the privates do it. So again, we're fortunate, but I think we're at the top end of it right now.
So I think I asked this of the police chief when he made his presentation. given the size of this town, how do we compare staffing-wise?
So,
Where should we be, or are we already there?
So let me give you an idea. Mansfield, so we're bonding together with Mansfield, Foxborough, and Easton with our regional communication center. So let me start with Mansfield. Mansfield, I believe, has the same number of full-time firefighters. They have a chief, a deputy, 2 day captains, and a day lieutenant. Okay, so like I said, we've been growing the bottom of our tree, but we've probably got the leanest top of the tree around, and it really is starting to take a price. And I'm really concerned going forward, and again, not for me because I'm done, but the fact that OSHA is going to be a real potential nightmare for us, DLS. So that's part of the things that we're having trouble with is our paperwork probably isn't as good as it should be. I can guarantee it's not as good as the other 3 towns that we're merging with and stuff. Part of it is because we're playing catch up with the IT stuff, that we don't have the fancy whistles and bells. Mansfield has 2 full-time IT people that do nothing but the GIS stuff and all that. So we're behind, we're slowly working on that, but that's part of what that additional day person would do. Foxborough, pretty much a similar department, same kind of runs and everything. They have the chief and 2 day deputies. Easton has the same as us. They have a chief, a deputy, and a captain working days and stuff. So we are the leanest on the top of the food spectrum. And that's why I hope for the next chief and deputy that you do give them the additional help that they really need to take care of the little things that aren't really being taken care of under my watch. So, but
the regionalization for the communicate, that will not impact your department any staffing-wise? I know you said you...
No, but I'm thrilled about it. I think it's going to help out with some of these items that we haven't been good on. The executive director, Robert Verdone, is really a really good snag for us and very gifted that way. He's actually writing some software programs that you probably would pay a small fortune for to help take care of some of the things, because we're also the Bristol County Regional Dispatch. So when there's a major fire anywhere in Bristol County and they get overwhelmed, they kick it to Norton. So one of the nice things that this guy's already got a program that we'll know right away what's in service, what's out of service, which we don't know now. I'm thinking I can call Attleboro for a ladder truck and find out that their ladder truck's either already out of call somewhere or actually broken down or something. He's got a lifetime program that he's already come up with for that for us and stuff. So little things like that this guy's working on. But again, that ball get kicked down the road, Mike, till a year from
July 2020.
Yeah, July 2020. So that's actually Mansfield and Foxborough are going to start on that July of 19. It's coming July. So they're going to get weaned into it first, and then we'll be going into that High Rock facility. We'll be the first ones in High Rock. So we're excited about it, and I think that that's going to help advance some of the stuff that we're lacking. So, Gee,
Thank you.
That was painless. Relatively. Right, Mike? All right, and again, thank you all for your support over the last few years, too. I really do appreciate it, so, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
No bombing calls tomorrow, you gotta sleep in.
Next budget is unemployment, and the request is for the same as last year, $75,000. And the next budget, gas and fuel oil, fuel oil and diesel, an increase of $5,000 in that budget to $115,000. And then the insurances that are listed below, I don't have any set numbers from the insurance company yet. I'm still waiting on those. So these are just estimates based on 3 to 5%, and looking at where we were in the previous years. And Estelle Flett couldn't be here tonight, so I just wanted to go over some things in the veterans budget. No increase in personnel or hours. Under the salary line items, everything is contractual, and in expenses, everything has remained pretty flat just a slight $20 increase in the expenses. And Estelle is requesting $230,000 in veterans benefits. And just some things to emphasize on that. Last 5 years, we've always received our 75% reimbursement from the state for full 75% for Chapter 115 benefits. And thanks to Estelle and the work she's doing on that. She's currently has 31 veterans that she's working with that are receiving Chapter 115 benefits. The number obviously fluctuates and it's hard to predict. People can come on, they can come on for a short time, they may get a job. People unfortunately pass away, and then it's just an estimate every year on what she's going to have. I will say that Estelle does a great job and helping people a lot more with the federal paperwork that they have to fill out in addition to the Chapter 115. And recently, one of our clients told her that they had paid $800 to a private company to do what Estelle will do for free for them. So she does a great job. Her and Beth Rossi, they'll be on weekends out there on Saturdays. If they get the call that someone needs assistance, they just drop whatever they're doing and go out and help. And it's amazing what they do. And the other part of the budget is Memorial and Vets, and that's the same at $1,500.
Mike?
Yep.
How do we reach out to our veterans in town? What communications, or do they have to come to us?
Estelle's out there in the community all the time. She attends all the different veterans groups meetings. I know there's a Veterans Council now that is still looking for new members, so if you know anyone out there that wants to get involved. So I don't know if any other, just her being out there and spreading the word. She does a great job trying to get some of the younger people more involved. It's kind of hard, but
Because they always struggle. I feel a lot of our veterans in town don't get the services that they're entitled to, because they don't know.
Mhm.
And I'm always wondering how we outreach. We talk about a lot of other outreach programs, but veterans seems to walk by the wayside. If you don't go to the parades, if you don't go to the senior center, you know, I think there's communication about when somebody comes in from the census that's a new veteran in town. But do we reach out and let them know, these are the service you potentially have, this is what we can offer, these are the things you're entitled to? I think it's a lost group.
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I might just add to that, what we have just done, since most of the information that Estelle has is private names and stuff, but we have a mailing which is going to go out to every veteran who has on the census checked off the box, and we're having an open house for veterans at the VFW. Whether you're eligible to be VFW, American Legion, it doesn't matter. It's just anybody who's checked the veterans box will be getting a letter from us, and they'll know this is going on.
And we do have the Veterans Work-Off program now, and there's still 8 positions available in that program. Any veterans that want to take advantage of that. And the last budget is data processing. And the main part of the budget, obviously, is the professional services. And this has increased this year. $19,250 of the increase is the online permitting software program for Full Circle Technologies. That's for licensing and support. And also, there is, under the Zobrio management system, there's an increase of $3,000 for electronic receipts processing so that we can take online payments now. And under additional equipment, the main, we've been trying to purchase like 5 computers a year to try and catch up. Well, it turns out throughout the whole town, police, fire, town hall, and water and sewer, we have 22 PCs right now that are operating on Windows 7. So at the end of the year, it's not supported anymore. So we do have some of those Windows 7s we can upgrade because they're not so old, but we have some that are from 2009, 10, 11. Those computers have got to be replaced. So instead of 5 replacements, we're looking to replace at least 17 this year. So that would be the major part of the increase in additional equipment.
Mike, are we putting some sort of plan in place where, you know, X number of computers are being cycled out every year so that we don't get into this position again 6 or 8 years from now?
Right, that's what I had said before, we were never on that.
Right.
And we started a few years ago to replace 5 a year, so that every time, you know, we're not buying them all at the same time, so they
Right.
all go at the same time.
But is 5 the right number? Like, I don't know how many we have in total. If we're replacing 5 a year, but we have 65,
Right.
that's probably not enough annually to get us through them fast enough.
Yeah, we'll look at that, especially after we buy all these
Right.
this year, that we should look at it and see.
Also, it's, if the number's higher or lower on a given year, I mean, it's not sensible to be replacing a computer before it needs to be replaced because, well, we're on schedule.
Right.
Right, so, as they
Right,
need it,
but-
right?
At the same
But-
time, how often do you need it? I know that,
Well, obviously, we're gonna have a year, we're
Well,
gonna
you
replace
know,
17 in 5 years.
that changes, right? I mean, it's gonna depend, I mean, the
17's gonna
original
come up again,
iPhone
too.
got outdated way, but way quicker than,
well, and it probably also
You know,
depends,
the later
different
model.
departments
Right.
using them for different things.
Yeah.
So it depends on what kind of software.
I'm just saying, if you
I
stuck
have
with a
a-
fixed
I have
schedule,
a-
you could end up,
I have a general
by rule,
question.
putting yourself in a position.
As we've gone through the budgets last week and this week, one of the things that I've noticed is that in all of the budgets, or not in all of them, but in many of them, there's a definite request, and I'm not talking about any particular department, for increased staffing, various other things. I know these are the departmental requests. I presume you have not yet entered into discussions with the departments. Do you have any sense at all of whether, how close can we be to doing these things? Or are we really in the same boat that we've been in for several years, where there are all these things which are needed, and we can't afford to do them? And I look at this and think, boy, this sounds wonderful, and everybody's saying good things about all the requests, and then I think of our history.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, should we perhaps put a pin in a little bit of the balloons that seem to be flying up?
Well, we're just about done with the budgets. What do we have left? Town clerk and recreation. So then I'll be going through them all. Obviously, realistically, is like a 3% increase in the budget, in the town budget. So we'll just have to see, try and see what we can do and what we can't do.
Looking at those preliminary sheets that you gave us, it just didn't look like there was,
Right.
as we planned, that there was
Some of
anything
those-
that would come close to this, so.
Well, I think some of those requests could be revenue producing as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so.
Can we get like a wish sheet there that kind of says this is what we think the budget's gonna be, this is where, if they all got what they wanted, we're gonna be, and
That's what we get in essence,
When
ultimately,
you
when we
get-
get the town managers.
Right, when you get my recommendation, it will show
Show their request.
their request and my recommendation. And capital is going to finish up next week, so then be coming back to you. One of the items that we had on capital for data processing was to replace the server here that's 7 years old. And unfortunately, we'll probably be in the same boat we usually are in the spring as far as capital requests, try and fund things that are absolutely necessary to be done this summer, and then hold off on some of the other things until the fall. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I went into this committee for a policy regarding the veterans agent, who's Dick Charette, right? Remember Dick Charette? He was instructed by the Board of Selectmen to be here for anybody that came to him, but not in any way to solicit or to go out and drum up business at all. It was only if people
Pat,
came here and they were
we have
eligible.
hard copies of
That
the
was a
minutes,
pol-
or-
That was a policy
Policy, I
imposed.
believe it.
It was
The one
imposed
that I
on
did?
him.
I believe
Yeah.
He didn't like it, but
I believe it.
that's where we were back then.
Yeah.
Just absolutely the reverse of what you were talking about.
Tom, is there a welcome packet, or like a sort of easily, is there a welcome packet for a veteran when you meet one that just kind of puts all that information into one easily handoverable?
We'll be handing out information at this open house for both organizations, the American Legion and the VFW, and they'll tell you what, other than being a member, which you don't have to be a member of either organization,
Yes.
they'll
Yeah.
detail what veterans things are available to you, like prescription drugs from the VA hospital. Instead of paying $100, you pay $8.
Right.
You know, all you have to be is a veteran who served and got discharged honorably. You don't have to belong to any
Will they go over,
organization.
does that include some of our local programs, like the Veterans
Veterans Work
Work-Off
Program?
Program and that
Yep.
kind of thing?
Yep. Or you can-
Sort of customized
veterans.
for
All you have to
Norton
be
as
is
well
just a
as
veteran.
national?
But I believe that is income-based. That program, I think, there's a certain income level you have to be below in order to qualify for that.
Yep.
But that's open to all veterans. And so is our open house. It's open to everybody. That's why we're asking Estelle to take the census with all the people who check the veterans box and use that as a mailing, because that's the only thing. We can't get her list, obviously. It's confidential. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more members to get more active in our post. Obviously, we got an ulterior motive, but the basic thing is to let all veterans know what's available. And there's stuff out there that's available that they're not taking advantage of, as Steve said. He's right, absolutely right. Yeah. Oh. I thought these were all the. Wow.
I don't know why Mr. Gavea could not make it tonight, so I'll find out if he wants to reschedule again to a future meeting. Beyond that, if anybody has anything else they'd like to discuss, otherwise a set of minutes is going around from last meeting.
Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes of February 25th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
Who seconded? Who seconded that?
Steve.
Motion, unless anybody has any further.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
I know that we had talked in the past about getting these packets electronically and maybe in advance a little bit, because I'm sure I have questions about Chief Schleicher's 21-page missive here, but as he was running through it, trying to be efficient with his time, I couldn't even begin to come up with one. So I'm hoping that maybe as we get closer to having to vote on some of these budgets, that we can get the final versions of what we're looking at ahead of time, maybe?
I'll bring that up again about submissions by, like, I think I asked last fall, like Friday.
Yeah, to have the
Then I
weekend
can-
to look at it would be great.
So I can shoot them out.
Would be helpful.
Hear you.
Thanks.
Nothing else? Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Whoever wants to take credit. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Next.
Next